Magic Wanderers. All week we discussed magic, how we heard a gust of traffic, a few farm animals across the road, until we don't, until the moss-covered trees cover our ears with branches, until a tree frog sings a solo. All week, sword ferns forget their sharpness of their name and wave hello in a breeze. Because the sky is tender, it reminds us to walk softly on our provided paths while our stresses disappear. Magic. Who would have thought we didn't need someone to say abracadabra or for my next trick? Watch the leaves change color and tumble down. All week we whispered magic. We almost didn't believe our eyes.
Hi, I'm Dave Schaub. I'm the director of the Inland Northwest Land Conservancy. I'm standing here in downtown Spokane on the banks of the Spokane River, which flows right through the heart of our service territory, the beautiful Inland Northwest. Our organization, Land Trust, was formed in 1991, and we work in eastern Washington and North Idaho to protect lands and waters essential to life here in the Inland Northwest. We have and share with our supporters a vision for interconnected natural habitats throughout the region, supporting thriving populations of plants and animals, respected and enjoyed by all who call this region home. And if you were here standing with me today, you'd see that people are biking and walking and running on the banks of this beautiful river that flows through our service territory. Along with the help of our supporters, over the years, we've helped protect about 22,000 acres of lands and waters in our region. We engage volunteers and supporters like you to help nurture and care for those lands, learn about them, engage with their families and friends on them. And we partner with our regional tribes to help build reconnections that have been lost due to a lot of the settlement activities that have occurred in our region over the last centuries. We're so grateful that you're part of this Windblown anthology launch with us. We're grateful to our artist friends and writers and volunteers who've helped make this happen, and I really hope that you enjoy learning more about us through the art and the visuals and the maps that have been included in this anthology. So thanks so much, and we hope to see you out on the trail sometime.
Cross-country pen pals, romance wary, old maid, train bum, 2 years married, gunny sack, refrigerator, spring cold water, log camp, wood sink, bear in the cellar, Grizzly Creek windstorm, trees roaring down, tunnel twister, bomb blast, run, honey, now. Water in the donkey engine, dry to the bone, piano on the rail car, time to call my own. First birth, second birth, 2 babes dead. 3 more, chickenpox, not so bad. Bacon in my daughter's throat, bacon in my hand. $10 dance fight, dreaming big band. Flood stage, wall high, piano made of mud. Bullet in the neighbor's chest, killer red with blood. Long years, nursing home, 5 plots gone. River run, wind song, on my way home. Thank you.
A universe to the fry, their river, fingerlings a month from today. Translucent they do not quiver, but shimmer with water going its way, wherever, just as starlight will. This shank of shallow waters safe and cooled by a side current tendril, they're too small for the osprey's strafe. But hold out your hand to cast a shadow, and a school will gather in the shape of your hand. A silver shimmer glow swimming, a shadow tail, your fingers cape. Close to a fist and see them form a bludgeon at the end of your wrist. And when you pull back your arm, they dissipate like a living mist. Thank you.
Hi, my name is DJ Lee, and I was so pleased this year to give my attention to Palisades Park in Spokane, Washington. And I want to thank the Inland Northwest Conservancy for this opportunity. My immediate and extended family has been attached to the Spokane area, as well as northern Idaho and western Oregon since the 1800s. So I already had a really special relationship with this landscape. And I just felt so honored this year to be able to get to know the area above the Spokane River so intimately. My poem is called Rim Rock to Riverside, and it is for Rose. Did the ponds have names? We'd returned home to find their sharpness fading. The yellow-headed blackbirds. We heard their rusty hinged cries and realized we were happy. Serviceberry, bulrush, willow. We loosened our grip on life, stopped glancing over our shoulders every few steps. One day, she told us, she was leaning against this big ponderosa. We were close to life's borders. The ponds dried up in winter and resurfaced in spring. We kept reminding ourselves the day had happened at all. Red-winged blackbirds, songs like summer mountains, and starlings mimicking the blackbirds. When we tried to savor the happiness, it dissolved into an aftertaste. Aspen, she said, were the first to come back after the fire. We'd been afraid something would snatch our lives from us before we reached the end. She'd reached the point of fully meditating when a thud landed on the earth next to her. Porcupine poop. We wanted never to cross-dissolve back into our mundane lives. It was rare she came out in spring and didn't see moose, bobcat, coyote, deer, whitetail, and mule. To hold life loosely, a ball bouncing freely on her fingers. The ponds didn't used to dry up, but they did now. To hold the shutter open indefinitely, one scene blurring into the next. The birds were erecting leaved nests in the cattails. To live in the corridor, she pointed to the fire line, to the vanished ponderosa. So all our days would run together and never stop. She had no idea he was above her, but porcupines can climb. It was to be expected in this channeled scabland. She saw him seeing her. No, she said, none of the ponds had names. They didn't name themselves. Why should we? Thank you very much.
Hi there, I'm Maya Marino, and I am a poet who's written for the Inland Northwest Conservancy for the area known as Waikiki Springs. So the poem structure that I created, it's called the braided poem structure. And we were asked to write 3 poems for our lands. And the poems kept talking to each other. And so I just decided, okay, I need to find something that helps me allow them to talk to each other and flow together. So this is my poem. It's titled Strands. And there's an opening quote by Chief Alex Sherwood of the Spokane Tribe of Indians. River, do you remember how it used to be? For thousands of years we walked your banks and used your waters. You would always answer when our chiefs called to you with their prayer to the river spirit. River, do you remember us? I came honoring this place, these people, with a song and tobacco, braiding prayers, aware I was taught. Braiding is allowed after you've caught and released what once was. A doorway between the past and present, between us and salmon, honored, 111 years remembered, a future for the children. Our thoughts and feelings pass through us, like the waters who redeem, a June hog salmon requiem, we sing, asking to bring understanding, asking to reclaim the land we hold hands with, we braid, we braid. What happens to a place when a spirit returns? We learn pieces of the foundation still exist, persist. Each song carries a different weight in its step, momentum developed. Sanborn, Selheim, Hall, Graves, they came, remodeled natural relations. Each strand an invitation, holds transferred memory, like family. The river invited me. Sitting by the spring, she crawled into my lap, the red and black ant matching my red and black dress. Yes, together. Family, visitors, braiding, unbraiding, between, with children, exploring their worlds where rivers and lands connect. Reflect. Unraveled braids, days we release the weight and breathe again together, combing through our return to our natal streams together, combing through wonder and grief like the pond, once a dumping spot for cow feces. We invite the songs the river remembers together, combing the land, the salmon are strands, long grasses entangled together. Thank you.
Over the past 33 years, the Kansas Land Trust has been working with landowners, communities, and other conservation organizations to protect lands of ecological, agricultural, scenic, historic, and recreational significance in Kansas. The Kansas Land Trust has preserved more than 40,000 acres, including 30,000 acres of native prairie, 173 miles of protected stream banks, 3,500 acres of prime farmland, and 3,200 acres of woodlands. Our vision for the future is one of a flourishing natural heritage that includes thriving tallgrass prairies filled with native plants that provide wildlife habitat, supports working ranches, and habitat for our pollinators. Rivers and streams surrounded by robust vegetation that filters runoff and improves the quality of water running through our faucets. Agricultural lands with rich soil where farmers can grow food for our tables. Resilient woodlands that can withstand a changing climate, providing outdoor recreation in all seasons. Working with landowners and members, the Kansas Land Trust preserves special places for future generations.
Hello, my name's Karen Miriam Goldberg, and this is my poem, Three Walking Songs for the Night. 1. I walk across a field, no more destination, journey through or over water, no more dreams of arriving. I'm here overlooking a small slope that leads nowhere. Leaves drop out of wet branches. The field eats them. A fox, then the sky turns itself like a clever hand this way and that, blocking or letting through the moon. Sometimes rain falls, no matter. The animals come anyway. When it clears, I lie on the fallen grass, look at that brave sky, and tell myself, shut up and trust that. 2. When I wake in the dark, I will go to the forest with no flashlight and walk slowly, afraid, letting my feet make out where next to step, waiting for what's hidden to let me into its hiding, no longer dreaming of his hands cupping my head tenderly. I will just walk in, feeling only where to land, the noise of the running world no longer running. The tree frogs cupping their motor song over the motor song of the cicadas, the brush of branch on branch, the owls a broken harmonic. Oh, dream of being loved so perfectly, oh, dream of forgiveness, oh, damp moon in a pool of clouds, wide stillness of nothing we call sky. Now, please, let me be brave enough. 3. I was afraid most of that year, no particular reason, just the rush of cold air through my lungs as if it had nothing better to do. I'd wake a lot at night, puppy diving after the kitten, the baby nightmaring right into the center of my good dream. I'd wake for nothing also. Sit up, climb out of bed, walking the house to prove to myself there was no reason to be afraid. I mean, look at the moon carrying itself branch to branch. Look at the indentations the wind makes in its body of grass. See how round the earth is. Remember how many animals sleep, hidden like prayers in the tall grass. See the open mouth of the sky, the shifting of stars across the throat of the universe, this time in its slot, actually happening.
Hi, this is Tracy Brimhall at Prairie Woods Walnut Pond with my poem, Devotional. I come looking for the many miracles I find. The first yellow of April, a red bud pinking with spring, lichen silvering the conifer branches. Other graces find me too. The wind carving its way along the ridge, stumps of trees licked black by lightning, even the music of light hail on last year's leaves, and the hymn of acorn cupules crunching underfoot. Even before blackbird nests clutch eggs or bison calve, everything radiates with life. Golden flowers hallelujah at the road's edge. A lone tree bends like a penitent over the pond. Even if I wanted to inch out on its branch and dip my hand in the water, none of this beauty wants me to love it too closely. No gentle stroke of feather or hide, even branches shaking with squirrels raise their new green tips too high to reach. Everything wants the intimacy of beholding, which is an intimacy that requires distance. Only deer tracks in the sand let me slip a finger in the print of each mark. Only empty pods of wild indigo let me grab and rattle. The living only welcome me if I hold myself as quiet as a prayer, as still as a heron. Let the seeds be touched awake by rain, tithing itself to the dirty heaven at my feet.
Grasslands conjure images of an endless and open land, seas of grass, and wide open spaces. But the reality is that native grasslands are the most converted and least protected habitat in the world. They have been plowed under, developed, and overrun with invasive plants and trees. But in the Flint Hills of eastern Kansas and Oklahoma, 4 million acres of deep-rooted grasses nurture some of the greatest biological diversity in the world. Tallgrass prairie once spanned 14 states from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, but today less than 4% of all tallgrass prairie remains, and most of that is in the Flint Hills of Kansas. Without long-term conservation, the Flint Hills will likely follow the same fate as many other lost natural areas and grasslands. Here, the Nature Conservancy empowers landowners to preserve the land through conservation easements and land management practices that enhance wildlife, habitat, and protect native plant diversity. The Nature Conservancy is a global environmental nonprofit working to create a world where people and nature can thrive. Founded in the United States through grassroots action in 1951, the Nature Conservancy has grown to become one of the most effective and wide-reaching environmental organizations in the world. Thanks to more than 1 million members and the dedicated efforts of our staff and over 400 scientists, we impact conservation in 76 countries and territories. Here in Kansas, our work focuses on large-scale, lasting land, water, and biodiversity conservation. We're tackling the biggest threats to nature all across the state, including the Flint Hills, the last large expanse of tallgrass prairie anywhere in the world. We invite you to learn more at nature.org/flinthills.
Jackrabbit. The Flint Hills stretch to infinity. An abstract word meeting you here on this hill. The motion in grass might be wind, but no, the jagged path shows where a bony jackrabbit flees. They fear people. This afternoon, autumn disappears as sun rouges the west, or maybe it continues in a different dimension. Listen, your breath ripples the blue-stem grass. Your eyes see beyond the creek leading sky to darkness. Past and future merge as a horizon and last forever. You travel this kingdom with Coronado before he left Quivira, before he wrote about land. So vast I did not find the limit anywhere I went. Some days thunderheads explode in the skies with lightning bolts so loud the ground shakes. Rainbows follow. Millions of stars speckle the night. All people who once lived here surround us. Red-tailed hawks keep watch.
Vermont is a place where the well-being of land and people are entwined. This legacy of interdependence is more essential today than ever, as we strive to build a more sustainable and just future. Every day, we work to strengthen and celebrate Vermont's land, its people's resourcefulness, and strong sense of community. We champion working farms and forests, support rural communities and their economies, and protect land, water, and soil. We foster healthy connections between land and lives, connections that can take root in a single moment and grow for a lifetime.
It's a real pleasure to be with you today and introduce these stories and poems for the Writing the Land project, which the Vermont Land Trust is really happy to be a part of. These three artists, poets, Ann Day, Jesse Lavasco, and Dan Close, have put together some really powerful pieces that reflect on and describe the relationship and connection that they feel to particular pieces of land that we've helped to conserve and protect here in Vermont. Every Vermonter knows how valuable that connection and relationship to land is, and it's wonderful to be part of a project that helps to bring that feeling to life. It's why we're here. It's why the Vermont Land Trust exists and does its work each day. And we couldn't be happier to be sponsoring and supporting this project.
Steps to take. My steps are not the bears lumbering through forest ferns, pressing their weight, clawing bark, reaching berries. Nor are they thin prints of fox, arrow to the wind, swiftly scouting land for mice and moving food. I am not like wolf, masking my hunt around stands of trees and brush, waiting for prey. Who am I, daring to travel in this moss-covered land that my kind have separated from without asking questions? I know nothing. How do I walk so as not to disturb, listen so that I do not disrupt, sit quietly so that all creatures and plants around me are free to fly and run, sense that my presence is not a threat, that I will not squash partridge berry under my feet, take a birch to the ground, leave burning coals from a warming fire. And like any home that I enter, not dismantle the woodland altars that have spirited the caves and spaces with their grace.
Oh, my name is Ann Day, and I was born in Boston in 1929 and grew up the oldest of 5 girls, and spent a lot of time outside. And my parents were great about nature and loved to. We recently had a garden and everything, and a farm and horses and a cow and stuff like that around in Boston or outside of Boston in suburbs of Boston. But then I got married in graduated from Colby, Sawyer College, and we married Frank Day, and the two of us sort of set out teaching skiing. We both were professional ski instructors. So in the winter we taught skiing, and the summer we worked on a farm. And we bought a farm in 1954 in Waitsfield, Vermont, or the Mad River Valley in Vermont. Anyway, I wrote these poems over the process of farming in the farm. Frank died at an early age in 1970, but we continued on. And so most of these poems are actually since then. I put the farm in Vermont Land Trust shortly after it, well, actually before it even moved to Montpelier. It was called the Ottaquechee Land Trust then, down in Woodstock, Vermont. And so I actually conserved it with the Ottaquechee Land Trust that later became the Vermont Land Trust. So it was the first one outside of Woodstock to be in a land trust. And I was really pleased and proud of that. So I'm going to read a poem called Birthing on the Farm that is beside a picture of Helen Wybrow, who is now on the farm with her husband, Peter. And they raise sheep, and they have about 60 sheep. And so sometimes when they're born in the spring, the mothers can't handle all of it. So they bottle feed. So that explains the pictures. But this is about birthing on the farm, in the woods, in the meadows. It starts in February with great horned owlets in tree hollows. Black bear sow suckling her cub in a rocky den. Crusty drifts beginning to melt and spread across April's brown pastures with ribbons of green, creating rivulets that flow into brooks and tumble to the Mad River Valley below. Purple violets, spring beauties, bellwots, Dutchman's breeches appear along the logging road on the farm, south-facing forest slopes. Barn swallows return to start mud nests to shed lee eaves, and bluets bloom in sun-filled fields. Under a hemlock in the woods above the farm, a doe lies waiting for the birth of her fawn. Then the pin of a woodcock spiraling right flight as he climbs high above a pasture slope. Now, from the barnyard into day's dawning, I hear bleating of ewes and their newborn lambs. The resurrection of life truly has come.
The beaver. The beaver, you know, he runs the whole show, like any good carpenter does. First his logs he retrieves from the bank and the leas and smacks them together with mud. And his pond he then fills, and it fills with bluegills, or with any luck, some kind of trout. And his home he then builds with all kinds of frills, not the least is the hidden way out. And his larder he fills with the branches he mills and delectable watercress sprouts. Then the pond it fills up with all kinds of stuff, like salamanders, amphibians, and such who feed on the larvae of mayflies and other incredible bugs. And whirligigs whirl and hellgrammites curl, and the nymphs and the naiads do flourish, then burst through the surface into summer's air, where they're suddenly seen as if in a dream to become ancient damsels and dragons, and they fly through the air and zoom everywhere in an absolute frenzy of tag-ons. Well, while all this is happening, the deer come to drink, along with the bear who stands on the brink, and the otters come too, along with the shrew, and the turtle suns on her log, and eyes the fox who is licking his chops and wondering what mischief to do, while high up above the eagle she soars, and the swallows, while flying much lower, collect their dinners of surfacing swimmers intent on a season of glory or more. Meanwhile, Mrs. Beaver is carrying pups and showing them just how to gnaw their way up to adulthood, and then they depart to start their own pond just upriver from the folks back at home, and with sleek coats do roam in search of their own pond and dinner. And so, dear listener, you see the importance of beavers in our ecology. If it weren't for beavers, there would be no spring for so many species, and what would become of biology? Would it go up in a forest of flame, or come down in a deluge of rain, with icebergs on fire, midst nuclear mire, and other scenarios dire? Or shall we esteem a new world serene, all held together by a beaver regime? And thanks to this builder and striver, the earth, blue and green, will still be our home forever.
Hilltown Land Trust is a nonprofit founded in 1986 to conserve forests, waters, farms, wetlands, public trails, and wildlife habitat in the Hilltowns region. Our service area includes 13 rural towns in western Massachusetts between the Connecticut River Valley and the Berkshires. Since our founding, we have conserved over 5,000 acres on more than 45 properties across our service area with the support of our members and our community. In 2021, we opened 3 miles of hiking trails at the recently conserved Conwell property in Worthington, Massachusetts. There's so much to be inspired by at Conwell. The pond that reflects the changing skies overhead, mink tracks along the banks of the little river, the sound of friends laughing together as they hike to Eagle Nest Ridge. Hilltown Land Trust is able to conserve and take care of places like Conwell thanks to a dedicated team of volunteers, members, and people who show their love for these hills through creative expression. This property perfectly encapsulates some of the myriad reasons that we conserve land. Habitat for our native flora and fauna, forests that store and sequester carbon, outdoor places that inspire and delight locals and visitors alike. We hope you enjoy Jupong Lin's poetry inspired by the Conwell property in our beautifully illustrated chapter in Writing the Land, Windblown 1.
This Hilltown pond, in the shade of fungus-festooned hemlock and pine, foxfire-blued twigs and tender trickling of a stream melting mysteriously into moist, leafy soil, hushes our happy chatter. A wooden stool appears perched at the edge of a still pond, so inviting, our feet slow to a pause. Breathe in sweet mycelial air, glimpse sky world reflected at our toes. A stone wall calls us off trail, built by Pecumtuck or Nipmuc, or white settlers. We listen for the stone's story. I read that people of the northern plains wore sacred Halploporus odoris beads. Who remembers mushroom medicine in this place near the Quinnipiac? Who's harmed by overharvest of this good medicine? Bright orange globs of witch's butter, tiny white buttons, dusty puffballs, all manner of mushrooms magically appear everywhere. We walk around a decaying tree, hosting patches of jelly and bracket fungi. My companion, earth lover and teacher, points to a dying tree. If I were a porcupine, I'd be all over that nook, she says, stepping over the waterfall beneath. You have to let go of any ego walking with kids. Mushroom Matt knows more at 7 years old than her at 27. I spy a tiny, lone, red umbrella mushroom. We gasp in awe, smiles wide as sky world. When I return, let's walk in silence. Remember these new fungi friends. Vow to listen more deeply to them and their land.
Since 1983, the Peconic Land Trust has worked with the community to conserve Long Island's working farms, natural lands, and heritage. Over 13,000 acres have been conserved, including working farms, such as Quail Hill Farm in Amagansett, shorelines that protect our communities from the impact of climate change, such as Real Point on Shelter Island, buffer land that protects our ponds, bays, and tributaries from surface runoff, such as our Smith Corner Preserve in Southampton, and so much more. We hope you enjoy the inspiring poems by Scott and Lori collected within the pages of Windblown, and that you find time to explore the beautiful and meaningful places that land trusts throughout the country are conserving and caring for with your help. We could not do this work without the support of many. So from all of us at the Peconic Land Trust, thank you. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Laird at the Croft by Scott Chasky. As rough stone sharpens steel, a man walks under the hill through wet grasses to tilled field. Hoe in hand, hand to wood, layers of loams sing, rain, sun, leaves, woven with weed, red root, purslane, lamb's quarters, and ocean's strong song. Tool of conduct, hoe. Hickory shaft caked with soil and cool tendrils, work, breathe, sharpen steel. Feel this stone ground to loam with glacial water, woven in grass and silt, a fertile, earthen intelligence.
This is Lori Landau reading my poem, Ode to Real Point, on behalf of the Peconic Land Trust. Ode to Real Point. Liquid, elemental, salt on the tongue of this land between waters. Blue-throated howl of tides. Primordial pulse you speak, yet elude language. Your waves could swallow me if I'm not careful. Today, you are the color of weather, magnificent in your fury. Unnameable beauty, show me how to find wholeness in breaking. Here is my shattered shell, feather severed from my wings. This is all I have to give back to you.
Sagaponic by Scott Chasky. These reeds I see are full of tears, summer rain simplified by grass, the pathway of water interrupted by matter. As it falls, the blue heron steps through grains of a great web. Sand, reeds, rain, translucent as years, water tangible as tears on grasses by the salt pond. Called globes, each orb of rain, touched by grass, fluid in rest, reflects reeds, wings, the surface glitter of summer, clarity of dwelling in one body.
Since 1967, the Branford Land Trust has come to protect almost 1,500 acres of land in Branford, Connecticut.
My great-grandfather owned the property, and pesticides were used on the property originally. And, my dad totally changed that. He became an organic gardener. He realized the importance of the marshes.
And the importance of the conservation. When we were growing up, there were big manufacturing companies. This river was actually orange. They just dumped everything into the river. And as environmentalists, became aware of this, it got cleaned up, so we saw more and more wildlife.
We protect watersheds for clean water, salt marshes that buffer against climate impacts, as well as forests and meadows that provide critical habitat for plants and animals. Land comes under our protection through purchase, conservation easements, and generous donations from Branford families.
We gave the pond to the Branford Land Trust with the thought that after we are no longer here, the Land Trust will have the pond, and we will be assured that the pond will be in good hands and will always be maintained properly.
We promote public access. Our volunteers have built and maintain over 30 miles of trails, bridges, and boardwalks that are open to the public.
Like when William was young, putting him in the backpack and going hiking with him and having him just engaging with the very quiet sounds of the forest or the leaves falling. I have beautiful pictures of him in the autumn when he's probably 6 months old on Kyle's back with the leaves falling all around him and he's just observing them. I feel like from the time that children are very, very little, that level of stimulation of just being in the forest is perfect for their developing brain.
We connect people to the land through guided hikes, educational programs, a children's day camp, and an environmental lecture series. We connect people to each other. The volunteers build friendships when they gather to clear trails, plant for pollinators, maintain osprey platforms, and write articles for our newsletter.
Nature's very important to me. I mean, I like, being in the city, but it's nice to get out where it's quiet and you can think and not have, get to know yourself and relax and reset yourself.
Our all-volunteer organization is supported by over 1,000 diverse community members. Won't you join us? Connect with the land. Connect with us.
Turkey Tales. Bittersweet clasps a tree trunk, studded with turkey tail fungi, growing in rows like tabbed file folders. Mid-afternoon winter light licks across the tree like love, like leaking sap, like an invitation. What more can we ask for but the warm smell sunlight releases from rotting bark, or its texture crumbling beneath our fingers? Or in this afternoon, while viruses coach themselves into new forms and humans brandish guns at children, and the seas rise while the sky falls, the one finger pressed against the sharp edges.
Capital Region Land Conservancy is the only land trust serving the Capital Region surrounding Richmond, Virginia. At CRLC, we educate landowners about voluntary land protection tools, facilitate the process of donating conservation easements, and hold conservation easements in perpetuity. We use a cooperative approach to conservation, balancing economic growth with natural resource protection. We empower landowners through voluntary land protection and work with local governments to reach their community's conservation goals. Farmers, foresters, environmentalists, and lovers of nature work with us every day. From acquiring land for local parks to protecting century farms, CRLC is committed to ensuring that all communities in our region have access to the outdoors and the land that they love. Whether oak hickory forests, pawpaw patches, vernal pools, or tidal marshes, our protected lands offer refuge to vulnerable plants and animals in a rapidly changing region.
Mama Earth speaks. Keep me safe from the high-rise towers of progress, for the beaver who leaves telltale chips of his industrious ways. Keep me safe for the young pine trees that add beauty to my face, for the sweet gum, silver maple, river birch, and rosebud trees, for the amber waves of broom sage that provide shelter to migratory birds. Keep me safe for the blue stem, river oats, and soft rush grasses which dance with the western wind. Keep me safe from the high-rise towers of progress, for our children's children. Keep me safe.
Greetings to everyone. I'm Dr. Gwen R.C. Moses. I am poet, and I'm writing for land for the 2022 project. And the land that has been selected for me is Warwick Road property that is located in Richmond, Virginia. It's 13 wooded areas along Warwick Road, and it has been donated to the Capital Region Land Conservancy in November 2020. That means it has been prevented from being developed. So my first selection is called Infernal Platoons. As I understand, it has been land that was more previously in earlier years a Confederate army passed through. Infernal Platoons. Trees intertwine, swing, rhythmically, intermingle, not calamity, interconnect. One strand of lavender intersect, topples a full branch of green, interpenetrate, it's spring, indescribable, 'tis the season for revival. Leaves which dare pay a price for winter's stay, strangle bark, witness slavish land, darken pistols amid virtuous leaves, creating veils, silhouettes met openings of flowering, as bullet-ridden soldiers, nail-pen bodies fall against collapsing beams. Under metallic moonlight, shadows on the riverbank drag fluttering leaves, condemn bowing, shame regrets, pools of marsh suck in blue-eyed hibiscus, swollen, misplaced, hope is due to show up only as a surrender. Surrendering to the colors of the sunset upon ocean waters blue, brown soil of Mother Earth, mustard and purple water lilies, mimicking pigments of combined skin, immersed in the same disgrace. Freedom is known to be a beggar, ripples and fights, pools like a river, drowning sacrifice. Once strong and fervent soldiers, hearts pounded like a last trumpet on a glorious day until called unto the skies, wherein soldiers' tears well up, forever to bring forth rain after a dry season to scorch like fire. Weeping for humankind, kind human, whose countenance will rise up from the waters, again and again, to be lifted to the skies. As such are cunning angels. 'Tis such repeated demise of war. Thank you.
I boon for an island that is no longer an island. There are many paths down to the water. On spring days like this one, even the sky drips, whispering the greens of summer into wet existence. What were you called before you were weighted with the hardness of hewn stone? Was it a summer name, fluid, draped with the skin of stars? Was it made of all a river can know of language, words for every shade of life that tiptoes roots into the cradle of her bed? Did you sing back what the joy of your silence is, the flutter and crawl and stamp of time? On spring days like this, did you share a tongue, the tug of warm mud where one nature holds the hand of another, passing secrets in the slow burst of a bead of honeysuckle? The river hums a different song now, maybe, colder, more lonely. She has seen more sadness lapping at your edges than even the rain can wash clean. Maybe you remember. Maybe you have taught yourself to choose to forget. To us who never learned to shape our ears around the syllables of earth and current, or to dance in the rhythms that lie outside of rhythm, there is only mystery and regret. And yet there is laughter in the sinking of graffitied cement into your riots of vine, bright colors swallowing bright colors until wild strawberries cover all, your heart closing like a fist content. If we who are deaf to such things could translate the crank of the heron overhead, it might say, "Let go." Foam swirls from cold pipe and smiles in snake-like knowing as it becomes still.
Hi, my name is Dorinda Wegner, and I'm here at the Capital Region Land Conservancy on Malvern Hill Farm. This was my land, and I'm very excited to share it with you. It is, as you can see, an absolutely beautiful wheat field, and that is what I used as the basis of this poem. And it's called Reflections on Wheat, a Prayer in 4 Parts. Malvern Hill Farm. Part 1. Goats were pouring forth their pure milk. Anemones were piercing the road's ribs. Lice were biting the sears gathered in gawk. Almonds were blanching in bowls of cure. Teeth were breaking gum or falling out. Breath was fouling close to necks, to ears. Tongues were separating themselves. Houses were massing their shadows' length. Letters were uniting into Lenten plots. Who do you believe me to be is not the same as who do you say that I am. A gravel path raked by death dragging is the same as a bloom on the staff of life. 2. Wheatgrass covers the field where once switchblade and broom sage grew, big and little, blue stem, wild rye. The word preserve in late Latin means to keep in advance of coming rose, soft red winter, your brother, an ancient grain, our ancestors, roots not native to this soil. 3. The devil hath desired to sift us as wheat. Tillers and main stem cut down, sickle, then scythe, then reaper binder, the wheat flail working loose the berries, the wind a whistle through the straw as the sparrow shrieks. 4. This land, before fallow field or cultivated crop, before stolen and bloodshed, before we forced our own history upon it, before we faithfully answered, who do you believe me to be, before our weaknesses were revealed in the winnowing and we falsely witnessed, who do you say that I am? Let us relearn Latin. Relearn as in conserve, to keep together. May the land take us to breast. May the land carry us under her arm as if we were omers of wheat to sieve and knead into a rough-hewn bowl. May the land leave us out to prove. May we rise together by grace.
We are still here, not all tucked away like parks in cities, close-knit core communities and dispersed afar in cities block. Outdated history needs correction. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, we are still here. Cities subjugate nature into insignificant pockets. It is still here. Minuscule comparison to the former honor, tucked away, awaiting the unexpected visitor.
Hello, my name is Dr. Grisela Costa, and this is my poem for Writing the Land. There is a nest. After the unisphere red-tailed hawks. There is a nest atop a globe of shiny steel, where a mother cares for her young, undaunted by the man-made metal cage, focused on the fledgling child who will one day leap outside the sphere, fly beyond, soar high above, and see how small it looks. Thank you.
My sister once mentioned a quote by Pauline Oliveros. Walk so silently that the bottoms of your feet become ears. I thought of this quote as I was walking in Corona Park. Ode to the Mud in Corona Park. After all, you persist this late winter to offer history and souvenir. So I walk, as a teacher instructed, listening to you with my feet. I hear the slow creak of a glacier, ice sheets breaking stone into terminal moraine. I hear the waters in a glacial lake and rivulets, torrents turning earth to marsh. Then the Lenape hunted, then the Dutch used tufts and such for grazing animals. I hear their lowing. I hear muskets. I hear the metal on road and rail. And after the rich enjoyed a quiet green resort, there came dumping. Can you hear the tons of ash? Can you hear the stench and infestation? Can you hear the fur trappers and squatters? I hear them, and the locals collecting firewood. I hear the lawns unrolled for the fair, the vigils and games, the crimes. We can't forget the crimes. Then return to the picnickers lounging on blankets. Hear the macadam, the gravel, hear new stampedes, new trains of thought, new embraces, new loves. I listen to you, whispering to my feet.